Welcome to our Leadership Coach Group Open Coaching. This is our inaugural session of Open Coaching. We'll be doing this every month, and this is our first month. So we're so glad you could join us. As you're joining us, please go ahead and enter in the chat where you're calling in from. And we've already had Alita from South Africa. I don't know if anyone's going to be Alita from the furthest from the U.S. We also have Amy calling in from Detroit, Michigan. Todd, welcome, Todd. Great to have you joining us as well. And you're in Phoenix. Todd travels the world, I know. So he's in the local area this time. Great to have you with us, Todd. So thank you so much for joining us. If you're just joining us, please enter into the chat. You'll see that icon at the bottom of your screen, most likely. Depending on how you've set it up, you can click on the chat and share with everyone where you're calling in from. We'd love to greet you and know where you're calling in. We have Iffy from East Vale, California. We have Carl or Reva calling in from the Philippines. And Sarah from our Leadership Coach Group team calling in from Sterling, Virginia, in the Washington, D.C. area. Welcome to you all. We're so glad to have you with us today. We'll be starting our content, our presentation in about just a few minutes. Want to give everyone a chance to kind of settle in and introduce themselves before we jump into our content. I see people are using the emojis and things like that. It's wonderful. Good thing to practice. So again, my name is Michael Seelman. I'm the CEO of the Leadership Coach Group. So glad to have you with us. This is our inaugural edition of LCG Open Coaching, where we present some content and also give you a chance to be coached. And today we're going to be focusing on reflecting on 2024, and we've called that Looking Back to Lead Forward into 2025. And I'm so excited to have our presenters with us, Tony Martignetti and Jerry Anathan. They'll be sharing their knowledge and expertise with us in a few minutes. So glad to have you with us, Tony and Jerry. You guys want to say hello to our wonderful participants?
Hi and welcome. Glad you're all here.
Yeah, likewise. It's so thrilled to see everyone from around the world, and we're going to have a lot of fun today, and we're going to hit a lot of amazing topics. So it's going to be fun.
Okay, so if you're just joining us, we'd love to have you introduce yourself in the chat. If you find the chat button, it should be at the bottom of your screen. You can write where you're calling in from. We'd love to hear from you. I see Sylvia, you joined us. I thank you for sharing in the chat. Oh, Paris, France. So we have someone from South Africa and someone from Paris. And Sylvia, it's great to have you join us. I let Tony know that you'd seen him present before, Sylvia. So glad to have you with us. So if you're just joining us, we'd love you to share in the chat where you're calling in from, and so you can greet the fellow participants. So glad to have you with us. Just as a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and we'll also be asking for volunteers to be coached after we present some content to get us all warmed up and ready to reflect on 2024 and look forward to 2025. Carrie, welcome. Thank you for signing in with us. Lewis. Oh, we have Malika. Wow. So we've got Tehran, we've got Paris, France, we've got South Africa. Wow, we've got worldwide audience here. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, Carl from the Philippines. Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Carl is one of our team members, and so we're excited to have her helping us out today. She's makes a lot of things happen with the Leadership Coach Group, so we're so grateful to have her as part of our team. All right, so why don't we go ahead and jump right in? And again, I'll introduce myself. My name is Michael Seelman. I'm the CEO of the Leadership Coach Group. I'm so excited to be here with my colleagues, Tony Martignetti, who will be presenting along with Jerry Anathan. And You'll hear from them, but let me brag about them a little bit, just to tease what you're going to hear from them. Tony is a TEDx speaker, former TEDx speaker, and a 2 times best-selling leadership author. 2 times, not just once, 2 times. So excited to have Tony presenting. And let me talk about Jerry. Jerry is, and I've had many opportunities to present webinars together. She is a Harvard-trained background in psychology. She just got her master's degree in psychology. She's a peak performance coach. So both Tony and Jerry are coaches, and they have lots of presentation experience. So I think you'll really enjoy hearing from them a little bit later. Let me tell you about what you can expect to experience. So Carl, if we could have the next slide, please. This is our inaugural edition of LCG Open Coaching. This is something we decided we wanted to let people know, whether you've had coaching before or never had coaching before. We wanted to give you an opportunity to experience coaching, to taste it, see it, feel it. And so every month, we're going to be presenting some content, maybe familiar like you are with other webinars, to kind of prime the pump. And then we'll be asking for volunteers to be coached. And this is similar to you might have in a coaching experience where your coach might share some knowledge, they might share a framework, they might share a resource, they might share personal experience that they've had, and then they'll ask you open-ended questions to help you achieve your goals. And so you'll see that happen today. In our open coaching, every month we'll be here, and it'll be the first Friday of every month at noon Eastern Standard Time. That's a U.S. time zone, Eastern Standard Time. And we'll feature different expert coaches from our team, and they'll be discussing topics aligned with excellence and the core values of our group. Because we're offering these coaching sessions, these open coaching sessions for free, because it's part of our mission to advance the practice of leadership, to increase leaders' performance and the happiness and fulfillment. So you'll see it's a broad mandate that we have with our mission, and we'll be having coaching topics related to that. So we thought in December, what's going to be on people's minds is thinking back over the year and starting to plan for 2025. So that's what we came up for today's topic, looking back to lead forward. We'll also be presenting actionable insights so you can lead with fresh perspectives and deeper understanding of different leadership concepts, things that you can use in your professional life and also in your personal life. Every time we'll be giving also what we call a playbook. Carl came up with that term, so kudos to you again, Carl. A playbook that's kind of a step-by-step guide that'll help you through these things. Now, because Tony and Jerry are going to present some content, but our guides are going to be about 20 pages long to help you do it more in depth. And so we'll be talking more about the guide a little bit later. But you'll be getting the guide following this webinar, scheduled for about 2 minutes after we end. You'll be getting a follow-up email that has this PowerPoint presentation, has the guide, it has a link to schedule with Tony and Jerry. So you don't have to worry. You'll get a copy of the PowerPoint. It'll have a link to a website page where you'll have all that information, all those resources for you. What we do want you to think about is volunteering to be part of the live coaching. We'll be asking someone a little bit later after the presentation by Tony and Jerry to volunteer to receive coaching from both of them. Most likely we'll just be having one volunteer, but we'll see how things go. And so just consider doing that. We'd love to have you volunteer. So our playbook, this is what our reflection playbook looks like. It'll give you ideas about how to reflect for growth, how to kind of prepare yourself and being the right mindset and the right space to be in a reflective mood. And Tony and Jerry are going to do a little bit of that in a few minutes to get us into that mindset. But the guide goes in more depth on how to do that. It also has structured tools about how to reflect in a structured way on your year. And it has different things that you can reflect on. So it could be how did the leadership of your team and your workplace go? How is your well-being in the past year, your kind of work-life balance? How has that been? How have you done with self-care? It has lots of things about that to reflect on. And so it allows you to do that. It has both some content about how to do it, and then it has reflection questions where you can fill that in. And we encourage you to use it for yourself, and please pass it on to anyone you want, friends, work colleagues, anyone you want, people you just meet in the park. We want to our mission is to advance the practice of leadership, help people feel happier and more fulfilled. So anyone you can share these resources with, we'd love you to do that. And some of the services that we have, this is a taste of our services. We hope that through the webinar and through our playbook, that you can have the tools you need to do your own reflection. If you want more help with reflection, or you want other kinds of leadership development help, we are here for you as a leadership coach group. Our team is very talented and has a variety of different services we can provide. We can provide one-on-one coaching and leadership and reflection and all these different types of topics that you might want coaching on. We can provide that. And we also have a variety of resources for teams. So we can do team coaching. If you have a team that's not performing as well as you'd like, we can come in and try to help them do that. We usually do a psychological safety assessment and then help them feel safer and more effective as a team over a series of meetings, just like we would do in one-on-one coaching, but as a team. We also have inspirational speakers that can come in. We can facilitate retreats. And then we have leadership assessments, a variety of different leadership assessments, including an in-house one that we've developed, and also personality assessment. So I mentioned our talented team. Our coaches are amazing, like Tony and Jerry, and we have a total of about 20 different coaches that can serve you. Our coaches have worked with leaders all across the world in major corporations and small companies. So you wouldn't necessarily notice the small, recognize the brands of the small companies we work with. So we put some of the major global brands up here that our coaches have worked with, including Oracle, Dropbox, Microsoft, SAP, Sony, Facebook, Google, FICO, you name it. Our coaches are very experienced, and we also work with small organizations, government agencies, nonprofits. So our coaches have that experience that you'd be looking for. So as I mentioned, you'll be getting a follow-up email after the conclusion of this webinar, everyone that is registered, and it'll have a hyperlink to a web page, and on that web page, there'll be our playbook, the year-end reflection playbook. There'll be a copy of the slides, and there'll be links to have a discounted coaching session with Tony and Jerry. So if you're like, wow, they're just amazing, and I want to see them one-on-one, I didn't get a chance to volunteer, or I wasn't brave enough to step up, whatever it might be, you'll be able to have a private coaching session with Tony and Jerry, and there'll be links on how to do that in our webpage and our follow-up email. For those of you that can't wait, you can just go ahead and scan these QR codes, and that'll take you to a way that you can schedule with Tony and Jerry. And don't worry, you don't have to do it right now because it'll be in that follow-up email. And then we've also put links to their profiles on our Leadership Coach Group website, where all our coaches that are available, their profiles are up there too, but these go directly to their profiles if you wanted to see more about them. I know some of us like, learning about every detail you can about folks, and this is your opportunity to do that. And so, without further ado, I want to turn it over to Tony and Jerry to help us get present.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Michael. So we're going to get present. To get the most out of this experience, we're asking you to be as present as possible. So the more you put into this process and this time together, the more you're going to get out of it. And so that's what we want for you here. And we're going to start our time together with a brief somatic breathing exercise. And so I'm going to turn over to my friend Jerry, and she's going to walk us through this process of breathing, which we do all the time, but not in this way. So Jerry, please take it away.
Thanks so much, Tony. And thank you, Michael, for the nice intro. So before I got into coaching, for many years, I had a yoga and wellness studio. And of course, a lot of that is around pranayama, or breathing, moving your, the refreshing energy, the healing energy into your body, and exhaling any of the tension, negativity, friction out of the body. So just very briefly, if we could all just kind of shake out the shoulders, shake out the arms, maybe move the head around a little bit. And we're just going to take a long inhale. Imagine you're pulling that inhale up from the center of the earth. Just nice, big, slow inhale all the way up through the crown of the head. Little more breath in. And releasing slow, fast, however you'd like, through the mouth. I hear someone wilting. Okay, so I'm going to hand it back. I'm going to hand it back to Tony to start with our programming. Thanks so much. Hope you're feeling a little more relaxed.
I know I am. So thank you so much for that, Jerry. So I'm going to start things off, and first I'll start with a brief introduction as to who I am. So, and it's a real pleasure to be here with everyone. We're going to explore the value of reflection and looking back to move forward with greater intention and clarity. So that's our intention for today, is to really focus on looking back and moving forward. But first, I'll do a brief introduction of who I am. My name is Tony Martignetti, and I'm a leadership advisor, author, and speaker. I focus on helping leaders and organizations to navigate change and unlock their potential so they can make a bigger impact in the world, which I know a lot of you are doing already. Before entering this area of work, I spent 25 years working in the high-tech and life sciences industry. So I want to share with you a couple of key moments from my own journey that really changed the game for me. And this is really aligned to the work that we're going to be doing today. Moments that taught me the importance of taking intentional pauses and stepping back to reconnect with what really was important to me. So years ago, before I started my current business, I felt this urge to take a step back. I took a step back from my busy career and reflected on what I truly wanted to create. And in order for me to do that, I stepped away from the world and did something a little bit wild. So I decided to travel to India for a month-long journey. It wasn't just about exploring a new culture or just taking a trip, but it was also about exploring my own inner landscape. And when you go to a place like India, which is really a fantastic place that's full of paradoxes, it's really a place where I was able to take time for me to sit with my thoughts and reconnect with my sparks of inspiration. I had always been, with me that this idea that I needed to get away from what I was doing and spend time to understand myself better. But there's often this sense of like things that are being beneath the surface of my day-to-day life. I needed to unearth what was going on. So I had to step away to do that. In this intentional moment of pause in India, I began to gain clarity about my direction and purpose to create something that would be inspiring and uplifting to others. And I think it really started with what was uplifting to me. And so intentional pauses are an important part of finding clarity. And, stepping away was what I really needed. So a few years later, after having my business going for quite a few years, my business was growing and life was again full of tasks and responsibilities. And I felt a similar need to reconnect with myself because, even when things are going well, sometimes you fall into patterns. This time I chose a different kind of journey. This is one that I call my reflection journey. And this time I chose to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, which is not an easy feat, but it was one that challenged me, but also got me out of my day-to-day life. The experience was physically demanding and mentally challenging for sure. It offered me the solitude and the altitude and space I needed to reflect on where I was and where I was coming from and where I was headed. And so I think it was important for me to have that space to really connect with myself again. reconnecting not only with my purpose, but also with my resilience to move forward in the next chapter of my life. So standing on the mountain, I could appreciate how far I'd come and the obstacles I'd overcome and set my attention for the path forward. Definitely some obstacles on the mountain, so that's for sure. I had to overcome those. But it was a time for me to step away, and not easy. The message here is not about, okay, you know, we have to move to some outlandish place to have a journey. You know, the message today is this: you don't need to travel to a far off country or climb a mountain to find clarity. You don't need a grand adventure to make a meaningful reflection. You need the willingness to intentionally pause, to carve out a little bit of, you know, even a small stretch of time to gain perspective. And I think as you sit here today and near the end of the year, maybe it's time for a little bit of perspective as we move into the new year. It might be an afternoon away from your routine, a weekend dedicated to introspection, or even an hour or a quiet walk that you could take. The key is to step back from the hustle and give yourself the gift of time and space to reflect in these moments. We truly connect with our own inner spark, our inner compass that points us toward where we want to go. As we close this year and look forward, I encourage you to find your own intentional pause. As we think about what's going to happen next, take the time to look back, appreciate where you've been, acknowledge your growth, and reconnect with the direction you want to take. Doing this will give you the clarity, the energy, and inspiration you need to move forward, not just as leaders, but as the fullest version of yourself. So it's about not just work, it's about your whole person. Who are you right now, and who do you want to be as you move forward? The playbook is a perfect companion for this journey. It's a great way for you to reflect and just put pen to paper, but do it for yourself. Don't do it for anyone but yourself. And that's really just where we want to get things started. You know, I want to thank you for listening to me, and hopefully you're taking some nuggets away from this little part that I'm sharing. I know you're going to really enjoy this process. And I want to pass over to my friend, Jerry, who's going to take us through some of the science of this process. Take it away.
Thank you, Tony. I hope you can all hear me okay. Tony, I really want to thank you for sharing your adventures. They sound challenging, you know, being in an unfamiliar place the first time, and then the second time really having to use your physical resources as well as your mental and probably emotional resources to get to that mountain and up that mountain. So really amazing. When we look at those types of challenges, like you said, we can also have them very quietly and intentionally. And your idea of carving out even an hour, a couple of hours, a weekend of reflection, I think is really fantastic. And we want to be non-judgmental with our self-reflections. This isn't about beating ourselves up for mistakes that may have happened. It's about not only those big events, both positive and negative, but the little pebbles in between those big rocks of events that can sometimes bring the most of the insights. By the way, I'm Jerry Anathan. Geraldine is my formal name, but my friends and colleagues call me Jerry. I've always been fascinated by science of the brain, of the mind, since I was very young, and finally did just recently get my master's at Harvard, as Michael indicated, with an emphasis in flow state, you know, how we can have the most peace in our minds, the way we can feel the most engaged and enthusiastic and fulfilled as we move through this life of ours, this short life that we have on the planet. And I've been a peak performance and executive coach for a little bit over a decade. I love to hike, I love to do yoga, I love climbing and swimming and film, and that's kind of what I do when I'm not at work. And I live between Cape Cod and New York City. So why is this reflection thing important, and what's really going on? Is it this fluffy thing? Oh, let's sit down and journal about it. It's really not. The neuroscience shows us that the brain is a predictive machine. Our brains are really wired to recognize patterns. And the process of pattern recognition is a survival mechanism, and it helps us make sense of the world, predict outcomes, and make better decisions. So the human brain has been making these pattern recognition sort of feedback loops since the caveman times, representing danger, representing pleasure, representing our needs. And as we move through life, we develop those patterns. Not that you need to know this, but I'm kind of a science nerd. So most of this pattern recognition occurs in the prefrontal cortex, that big part of the front of your brain, where we process complex thinking, decision making. It's sort of like the CEO of our brain. It lives in that prefrontal cortex. And also the hippocampus, which is shaped like a little seahorse. It's like here, but it's in the middle of your brain. So like above your ear, but in the middle. It's a little squiggly thing, and that's where we do memory consolidation. It plays a big role in learning, and also a big part of our emotions. So by looking back on our year with intention, we're really strengthening those neural pathways to allow us to learn from the vast array of experiences that we had. You know, you've probably heard of neuroplasticity. If you haven't, what that is, it's the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout your life. And it really does allow us to rewire the neural pathways based on those experiences, those thoughts, and those behaviors. So essentially, when we reflect and we learn, oh, look, something similar happened during these really great times. Oh, something similar happened leading up to these not so great times. It's deep, it can be deeper work, but you're literally reshaping your brain to become better at what you're focusing on. So, you know, it not only helps us to avoid making mistakes, but it also can identify patterns of success that we can replicate. So reflection also helps us with our values. And you can see, you probably know, you may or may not know, there are kind of two sides of the value scale. There are intrinsic values, which are the ones that are more about your insides, your personal growth, your creativity, things that are really meaningful to you, those types of values. Then there are the extrinsic values, which are notoriety, reward, money, recognition. None of the, and there's not one is worse or better than the other. But if we overweigh, if we let that extrinsic side get too heavily weighed, it can lead to a lot of stress. So we want to kind of balance those scales. Typically, we find in research that the extrinsic values are fantastic for the short term, but we don't necessarily want to be wired that way. So no judgments. It's all just saying, was I too tied up in these extrinsic values last year? Or, you know, what are just 3 that I can set for next year so that I can reach those? You know, you're just going to find out for yourself what's important to you. So when we pause to look at those events, you know, we really kind of align and balance between the two, which helps you create strategies for the year ahead. So why does all this matter? When we're clear on the values and learn from our experiences, we're much better equipped to design meaningful goals and keep up our motivation. Building resilience when the challenges roll in, as they do. You know, you think back quickly on the last year, and it's almost like these little flags pop up. At least for me, like, oh, this happened. Oh, you know, you can kind of like see the red flags and then see the, like, what I know, the rainbows, you know, just different events. So looking back really helps. It's something that you can't really put into words until you do the exercises themselves. And as I'm wrapping up this, we're going to go into kind of a personal exercise for you. So if you can grab a pen and a pencil, a pen and a paper, or a pencil, or if you have something to type on, we're going to do a little exercise in a minute. But you know that saying, know thyself, that's been around for like 2,500 years, kind of as long as the Buddha. So, but it's Greek. But it's true. If you know yourself, you can continually improve. And if you don't know yourself, you can't really improve because you're just kind of letting life control you. So knowing more about what affects you will really help you feel good as you plan ahead. So let's do one more just quick breath in, breath out as we go into these exercises. So let's take a big inhale again. Great. This time, imagine a candle and you've just blown it out and the wax is just melting down you, just relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your arms, your hips, your legs. And another inhale. Great. Let's move to the next slide, please, Carl. So these questions I'm asking you, this is sort of to just spark the journey of doing a little reflection. So each of these questions are two-parters. So I'm going to give you about a minute to finish each. Who did you meet in 2024 that enhanced your life in some way? And how are you individually different as a result of meeting them? I'm going to give you about 15 to 30 seconds to just think about that, maybe make some notes, and you could go into this more deeply on your own later.
And as Jerry said, you could enter it in a piece of paper, or if you want to put it in the chat, if you feel sharing it with your friends here on the webinar, we'd love to hear your reactions to these questions that Jerry's walking us through. Thank you, Jerry.
Sure. For me, when I did this question, it was really humbling, because some of the people that made a big impact on me, I'm not sure that I expressed it in the way that I wish I had, and maybe I needed to reflect back to realize, hey, that person really impacted me, and at the time maybe I didn't recognize it or acknowledge it. So these are really you never know what these questions could lead to. What is one challenge that you faced, and how did that challenge shape you or strengthen you as a leader? This could be in your family, it could be in your workplace, it could be something external to you that really impacted you.
Almost inclined to say, instead of as a leader, as a human, right?
Yes. Exactly. Sometimes closing our eyes also helps. Helps us reflect, takes away the stimuli, the exterior stimuli. So what's one mindset or belief or limiting belief, habit, something that you want to leave back in the past when we turn the page from 24 to 25? And what's something that you would like to strengthen or bring into your life that you have not given the weight that you would like to?
Such powerful questions, and I think they need this takes a lot more time to reflect, but we do what we can. Yeah.
That's why I would suggest not when this webinar is over, carving out a half an hour for yourself tonight with a candle or in the bathtub and really thinking about these things, writing them out, feeling them, thinking about them. So I also would encourage you to dig. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I would also encourage you to really do play with that playbook, engage with the playbook. There are some great insights there. Create your own questions. Don't think about the answers, think about the questions. It's such an exciting kind of fun event to do for yourself. And then you carve out a little space of time, make a little miniature retreat for yourself and kind of dig in. So these questions were designed to spark both insight and action. And we believe that the playbook will also be a springboard for your personal and professional growth. Thank you guys so much for being here. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Michael to get our open coaching going.
Jerry, thanks so much for leading us through that and those questions to get us primed for coaching, and Tony for setting the stage earlier and having that clarity and reflection journey. And that we can do right here in a webinar. We can do in the quiet of our own space with a candle, wherever you want. You can have that reflection journey. Now we're looking for a volunteer. Carl, if we could have the next slide, that wants to receive live coaching from our expert coaches here, Tony and Jerry. And the things that we're looking for is we'd like you to be all ready to come on camera and microphone. And we can, if you volunteer, we'll kind of allow you to do that. We'll turn on that feature in the webinar. And just remind you, we're being recorded, so I just want to make sure that's okay with you. if you do that open coaching, and be ready to engage in a meaningful coaching conversation with Tony and Jerry. And this is a great opportunity. It's a great experience. So wanted to give you that opportunity. So if you are ready to do that, you can use the raise your hand feature in the webinar, or simply type I volunteer in the chat. We'd love to have you volunteer and get the benefit of interacting with Tony and Jerry. They're great. They're fun. So I encourage you to volunteer. We love someone to volunteer to receive the coaching, to help them walk you through a reflection exercise, and share whatever you want. Jerry says she won't bite. All right, Sylvia, I think we can hear you.
Yeah,
we can't see you yet.
There seems to be a problem with my camera.
Well, at the very least, we can get started.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Go ahead and work with Sylvia.
Wonderful. Well, if you come on camera, that's great. But in the meantime, let's just start with, what is when we're doing this. I'm gonna give a little bit of play-by-play about the coaching process, because I want to, do some of the understanding of what's going on in this process. So we're going to start with just probing around the topic. What is something that you like to talk about today? What's the topic that you're looking to dig into in this time together? And our thought would be that it'd be around where we're headed in terms of the reflection.
I guess for me it would be how in terms of the DISC personality model. I think I'm more of a blue, and I think my manager was more of a red. And I'm just, I guess my reflection would be how to get on better with different kinds of, with that kind of person.
It's a wonderful question. Yeah, and so first of all, I guess the next thing that I would come to is that the goal for you would be, if I could maybe clarify what I'm hearing, is that you want to build a better relationship with your manager, and your manager is
my
ex-manager way of connecting.
Actually. It's something that happened in the past. It's no longer, there was a restructuring. I'm no longer there.
Oh, okay.
And so, learning lessons from what happened.
Okay.
Did the red and blue disconnect? Is that something that affected the relationship between you, or is it just something that you're looking back on to try to learn from?
It wasn't obvious that it affected it, but on thinking back, I think it probably did. This is just my interpretation of what happened. I think it might have.
So you're thinking about this from the perspective of what you can learn, so that going forward in relationships that you're having with future people you connect with, that you can have better relationships with people who are different than you.
Yeah.
Communicate differently with you than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that seems like a meaningful goal. It's something that we can at least get started to talk about. In terms of why this is important for you, this is where we're really trying to understand. What do you think this is? Why is this important to you? Tell me. Why is this goal an important goal for you?
Because I think it's important to, at work, you will often encounter people who are very different from you, and you have to manage to adapt, to get along in order to be effective together. Yeah,
makes sense. Jerry, you want to?
My mind is going a couple different directions. I'm thinking about the DISC platform itself, and while it's providing the example for you, I think it's not necessarily about that exact personality type or your exact personality type, but how do we better understand the people that we work with? That's sort of where my mind is going when I'm picturing this. And, as a coach, Tony was explaining a little bit about the process. We typically, while we would love for you to come up with some of the answers, we sometimes have ideas that may be helpful. But I will then put that back to you for a moment. What have you tried or what have you thought about doing to kind of understand different types of personalities and how you can better communicate with them?
I guess tune in more to probably ask like more often what kind of interactions he needs, what level of interaction he needs, and things like that. Instead of just assuming that my way of viewing the relationship is the way that he would see it as well.
Yeah. One of the big things I use in coaching, I probably say it to more clients than any other thing, is this thing about expectations versus agreements. And sometimes we'll be in a conversation or have a meeting and we leave with the expectation that we're on the same page, that we know what's next, that we know what's expected of us, or vice versa. But if we don't turn that into an agreement between both parties, it can, people interpret things in different ways. Well, part of your asking just reminded me of that, expectations versus agreements kind of motto. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'm, leaning into is this idea that, as Jerry said, we want to make sure we're hearing from you. What are some things you've tried? And maybe what are the reasons that you think that, that this is a disconnect? And what evidence do you have that this communication challenge exists? In other words,
I don't have evidence, but it's more a feeling. Yeah, I mean, in the end, when there was a restructuring, I lost my jobs.
Yeah. Well, when you say that, so here's the thing, and I'm not trying to, obviously that's a devastating feeling, but sometimes we make up stories about events, oftentimes. And when things happen, we think, oh, well, it must have been because of X, or it must have been because of Y, without really knowing what really happened, or what, as Jerry was alluding to before, there's a sense of like, expectations versus agreements is one thing, but there's also expectations and reality. Maybe it wasn't as bad as you think it is. Maybe the communication could have been, maybe the situation that happened was more around a business challenge, or another thing happening in the organization, and less about something you did wrong or some situation that happened between the two of you. So I'm just putting that out there. Sometimes the stories we make up can have us feeling like, oh, we're not good at communicating with other people.
And I'll just add a little nugget, since you did start this conversation, this coaching experience off with the DISC. There's some great information out there on how your personality type can better communicate with personality type A, B, and C. And those are really, really interesting little nuggets. And it's almost like a code, it's almost like an escape room. Like, okay, here's the direction. Here's the way I can get through to this person. And it's going to be hard because it's not my personality to talk to the person in this way, but I'm going to give it a shot. How would that feel for you to experiment with something like that?
Yeah, that's definitely useful.
Yeah. It's there's a saying of the golden rule versus the platinum rule. The golden rule is to treat people like you would want to be treated, but in the world of the DISC, they talk about the platinum rule as being speaking to people like they want to be spoken to, And what that means is it's really kind of creating this sense of, well, if they're a red, how do I adapt my style to meet them where they are? And so in many ways, that might be applied in this situation, is to say, well, if I'm a blue and I have a style, then maybe what I need to do is figure out, how do I, in certain situations, adapt to a red to communicate better with them? It's not about changing yourself, but it's more in a situation, in the context, being able to adapt in that situation. This is a little bit out of the coaching context, but it's more just trying to help you.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for volunteering.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michael, what's next?
Well, thank you very much, Sylvia, for being brave and volunteering. Thank you, Iffy, also for volunteering. And Carl, if you could bring our PowerPoint slide back up, appreciate it. So, and thank you, Tony and Jerry, for providing a sampling of what coaching is like. Coaching can help us get new perspectives, can help us solve challenges and learn to take action. So there's things that Sylvia might take some action in 2025, or perhaps you, like as Thomas, thanks for sharing your reflection in 2024. So you said, in 2025, I'm going to bring a can-do attitude. So what we ask you to do is, when you have these reflections, is to commit to doing something differently. So whether Sylvia or Thomas or Iffy, when you do that reflection, think about what you want to commit to doing in 2025 to do something differently. What we're going to commit to doing is we're going to send you a follow-up email. And as a follow-up email, as I mentioned, we'll have the year-end reflection playbook that'll help you do this exercise more and more depth than what Tony and Jerry just walked us through. We'll also have a copy of the slides that we presented today, and you'll have an opportunity to have a discounted coaching session with Tony or Jerry, and there'll be 2 different links in case you're like, oh, I want to work with Tony or I want to work with Jerry. You'll have links to do that, and you can sign up with them. So if you, for instance, still want to get a chance to get coaching, you can sign up with them. And next slide, please. We'd also love to get your feedback. As we mentioned, this is the first time we've done open coaching, and we'll continue hopefully for years to come every month. And so we'd love to get your feedback, and you can scan this QR code if you have your phone out, or you will also get a link when we send a follow-up email. We ask for your feedback. In the chat, we have the links to do the coaching sessions with Tony and Jerry, and also the link to give us feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Try to model the way of soliciting, receiving, and acting on feedback. It's always a gift when you get feedback. So next month, on January 3rd, right after New Year's, we're going to be focusing on goal setting. It's a time a lot of us set New Year's resolutions or goals or think about new habits, and that's going to be the theme of our next open coaching session, January 3rd at noon Eastern time. And we encourage you to check back. Thus, and also in the follow-up email, we'll give you access to how to learn more about our January session. So we're here for you. Any type of support you need, if it's one-on-one, personally, with your company, with your teams, we'd love to provide that support. Here's our telephone number. It's available 24/7. Operators are standing by. We also have my email address and our website. We hope that you'll reach out to us. It'd be our honor to serve you and whatever you and your team needs. If you have friends you think could benefit from coaching, colleagues, or yourself, we'd love to provide you that leadership development support. We also have inspirational speakers, leadership assessments, team coaching, retreat facilitation, anything you might need. We try to be your one-stop shop for leadership growth. So again, we thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you'll be able to take what you've learned today to reflect on 2024, to come up with some things you want to carry into 2025, to commit to doing those things and moving into action. We're coaches. We try to want to see you take that action so that you have an even better life, so you have that peak performance, that greater happiness and fulfillment. So with that, again, I want to thank our speakers, Tony Martignetti, Jerry Anathan. I want to thank our team member, Carl, for helping us prepare for this webinar. And I want to thank all of you that are participating with us live and those that you would be watching this recording. We really appreciate the opportunity to engage with you. Please reach out to us if there's anything we can do in the future to help you. It'll be our honor to do that. Thank you again. And also thank you for Sylvia for volunteering, being brave, and Iffy. We appreciate you stepping up. Take care, everyone, and best wishes for a great 2024 holiday season and successful 2025. Thank you.